So as we all know, Donald Trump got elected because he said he was going to bring down the cost of living for everyday Americans. He said, I can fix that. And if we've seen anything since he got sworn in as the 47th president, it's that he could care less about what he's doing to our markets, what he's doing to the American people, because even though people told him that these tariffs were going to be devastating for our economy, he continued to push forward with them anyway. He put them on, he put them off, he put them on again, he took them off again, and then he paused them. And then he went absolutely out of this world, came up with this radical formula, took our trade deficit, divided it by the import, slashed it in half to pretend like he was a nice guy, and then came up with an astronomical tariff number that nobody could actually make sense of. And this is hurting the American people. And if there is any silver lining through all of this, it's that the American people are starting to notice, because Donald Trump is breaking records, but he's doing it in all the wrong ways. Donald Trump is falling underwater, even on the economy now. So I want to take a look at some of this polling, which kind of just puts everything into a little bit of perspective. We saw the hands-off protest this week as people went to this rush to the streets to speak out against this administration. And now the polling is starting to reflect the buyer's remorse that the American people are starting to feel. Here, they are talking about how this self-inflicted market crash is just really not normal for a president who is only a little over 2 months in. If you guys do appreciate my work, please do remember to subscribe.
Because I have heard from some Republicans that say this is pretty normal stuff.
Yeah, if this is pretty normal stuff, I'd like to know what not normal stuff is. If this is a boom, I'd like to know what a bust is. I mean, my goodness gracious, we'll talk about it. I mean, talk about the S&P 500. It's dropped 15% under Donald Trump's presidency. The S&P 500 has been collecting data essentially since 1957. It's been an index. I went back and I looked for drops of 15% with a president who was inheriting a bull market. There's only one dude on your screen. It's Donald John Trump. He is the only one to see a drop of 15% this soon into his presidency in the S&P 500 after inheriting a bull market. In fact, there's only one other president who has seen a drop of 15% this early on in his presidency, and that was George W. Bush back in 2001. But of course, he was in fact inheriting the dot-com bubble bust. And so this is truly unique, where you come in with a bull market and then boom, right through the floor. Donald Trump, the S&P 500 dropping already 15%, Jessica.
So this really cannot be understated, guys. Donald Trump inherited an economy that was the envy of the world. Even the Wall Street Journal said the next president was going to inherit a remarkable economy. Wages were rising higher than inflation. We had investment coming into the country. We had the Chips and Science Act. We had infrastructure going on. That doesn't mean everything was perfect, but Donald Trump inherited a pretty strong economy. And now he is the only president who inherits this bull market, this strong economy, who has flipped it on its head, all because he has this delusional understanding of what these tariffs are. Everybody told him that these were going to be catastrophic. Everybody told him that these tariffs don't work in the way that Donald Trump says they work, and he continued forward with them anyway, and now he is starting to feel the consequences of this really just stupid mistake. I mean, tariffs are not paid by the other country. Trade deficits are not us subsidizing other countries. We are the United States of America, and in fact have been on top of the global order, and therefore experience huge benefits in our trading relationships. But Donald Trump concocted this conspiracy in his head, and he went forward with these tariffs anyway. And now the American people are finally waking up and realizing that this guy's just an idiot. He's really just an idiot. Here we're talking about the possibility of recession is now on the rise.
Yeah, that's exactly right. A chance of a recession, something none of us want to see. And what's the chance of a recession? I mean, J.P. Morgan, look at this, now up to 60%. It was 40% in early March. How about Goldman Sachs? It was 20% in early March. We're now up to 35%. Basically, at this point, you average all these different companies together who put forecasts out on the chance of a recession. It's about 50-50, way up from where we were at the beginning of this year. Poly market, where you can trade, was I think a 30% chance at the beginning of the year. Now it's 60%. No bueno. What stays in the stock market, what happens in the stock market may not stay in the stock market, Jessica.
I mean, this is just absolutely insane. He inherits a bull market. He goes through with these tariffs. And now we can draw a straight line from Donald Trump's delusional thinking with tariffs to this economic downturn. That's the ballgame. That's it. That's all. There is no other culprit in the economic downturn that we are currently experiencing. We have seen more than $6 trillion wiped away from our markets in just 2 days. And I think that number continues to go down or up, however you want to look at it. The markets continue to go down as we speak. And, you know, there is nobody else to blame except Donald Trump. Donald Trump did this all by himself. This is a self-inflicted wound that did not need to happen. But because Donald Trump is such a buffoon, the American people are suffering through these very bad decisions. That just is what it is. This is a Trump tax that's going to hurt everyday Americans. Cost of living is going to go up for American businesses, for American consumers, for American families. And every single bit of it is Donald Trump's fault. And the American people are really not happy with how Donald Trump is handling the economy.
Yeah, I mean, you look at these numbers, you wouldn't be surprised to see Donald Trump's net approval rating. Compare it now to where it was at this point in the first term. In the first term, he was above water at plus 5 points. Where is he now? He's way underwater. He is swimming with the fishes. Look at this. He is the worst ever for a president at this point in a term, on record at minus 12 points. I just never thought I would see the day because, as we were hinting at the beginning, Trump promised an economic boom. Voters bought into it, but so far they ain't liking what they're seeing.
I don't think people really understand how insane this actually is because Republicans have enjoyed an advantage on the economy. For whatever reason, despite the data, people trust Republicans in their handling of the economy, even though all of the data suggests that it's Democrats that actually create more jobs, that actually have better economies. But Republicans have enjoyed that advantage. And now to see Donald Trump underwater by 12 points on the economy is absolutely insane. And Donald Trump doesn't have anybody else to blame but himself. I mean, we had the Chips and Science Act, we had infrastructure, we had all these different things that if he just stepped back and let play out, he could have claimed credit for all of these different things. But instead, he had to play in fantasy land. He had to implement these terrible, terrible tariffs. And now, not only is his popularity suffering, but more importantly, the American people are going to suffer because of his idiocy. It is, I mean, there's nothing else to be said here. Let's go ahead and move on to this video where they're talking about, I wanted to put it into historical context. Like, a president comes into office, you know, their popularity goes down over time, but the way that Donald Trump did it is quite unprecedented.
Yeah, always when you think of economic bust, you think of Jimmy Carter, the recession that occurred under him, right? How long did it take him to get a negative net approval rating on the economy? It took him 11 months. It took him all the way until December 77, January of 78. Donald Trump already has a net negative approval rating only 2 months. 2 months into this term, he is the fastest on record to go negative. And comparing to Carter, I mean, you don't have to be a mathematical genius to know that 2 is a lower number than 11. Carter took a while. Trump, right on in. The voters have turned right against him.
Again, Donald Trump is setting all these records in all of the wrong ways. I mean, I just don't even know what to say. People were warning him that these tariffs were going to be catastrophic to our economy. They were going to hurt our trade relationships all across the world. They were going to hurt the American consumer. They were going to hurt businesses. People were warning him. But because Donald Trump is such a malignant narcissist, and because he thinks that he knows better than anybody else on any given topic, he continued to push forward with these tariffs, and now they're hurting everything around him. And so he does deserve to suffer in his popularity here. He does deserve to suffer in the midterms. Every single one of these Republicans who have backed Donald Trump, who didn't stand up against these tariffs, even though they knew that this was going to happen, every single one of them should be voted out of office. They even handed their power away to Donald Trump so they couldn't even put a check on the tariffs. So every single Republican needs to be voted out of office, and Donald Trump should suffer a huge electoral blow this midterms. And like I said, 2026 midterms are going to be here before we know it. And as we saw over the weekend, where the American people hit the streets to register their discontent with this administration, we have to harness this rage and build a coalition that is going to beat back this authoritarian regime. And as we can see here, people are getting interested in these hands-off protests in general. The American people are starting to wake up and realize that it's we the people that have the power, that it's we who need to come together and fight back against this Trump administration.
Yeah, so, when we entered the Trump presidency the second time around, there really wasn't that resistance, right? Not what we saw in January of 2017. Well, now we're starting to see what we saw in January of 2017. Look at this, Jessica. This is Google searches for protests. Get this, up 1,200% versus a year ago. It was the highest level on Saturday, and I went back into the record books. You know I like to do that, Jessica Dean. And what did we see? We see that the number of folks who are searching for protests, interested in going out in those protests, is finally matching what we saw in January of 2017, if not exceeding it. If the Democratic resistance seemed to be nowhere at the start of this Trump presidency, with approval ratings for Democrats down at their lowest level ever, all of a sudden Donald Trump has supercharged it, and the protests and the resistance is on.
I just love to see it. And I don't really know how Google searches for protests necessarily correlate with people actually going out and participating in protests, getting involved and things like that. But as we just talked about in another piece, we saw the hands-off protests. I think there were millions of people who mobilized. They were in red states, they were in blue states, they were in red cities, they were in blue cities. People came out all over the country to speak up against this administration, because they are looking around, and whether you're a Democrat, whether you're a Republican, whether you're an independent or even a non-voter, people do not like what they see right now. And Harry Enton is right. The Democrats were caught flat-footed. They were nowhere to be seen when Donald Trump first came into office. So we need to get to work. We need to put this rage to work. We need to build a coalition that is going to push back against this authoritarian administration. And with any luck at all, we can have a blowout midterm, and we can take back Congress. We can take back the Senate, the House, and we can start pushing back in a very, very meaningful way against all of this stupidity that Donald Trump has brought to the White House. That is our goal and should be our goal moving forward. And we just have to keep the temperature up. We got to keep pressing on these issues. We have to keep reminding people that these tariffs are Donald Trump's fault. This is a Trump tax. That prices are going up all over the country because Donald Trump. Markets are crashing all over the world because Donald Trump. There is nobody else to blame. So we need to keep the fight up. We need to continue to hit on these issues day in and day out. We need to build a coalition that is going to come back and beat back this authoritarian regime. So I will leave it there for now, guys. If you guys got anything out of this video, please do remember to smash that like button and subscribe. Maybe share with a friend or two. I'd very much appreciate that. We're trying to build something here on the left that adequately pushes back against this right-wing media ecosystem that just shovels shit for Trump every single day. So if you do like what I do here, please do remember to smash that subscribe button. It is free. And if you guys want to see all of the people who turned up all over the country for the hands-off protests, do watch that video on the screen now. It is a very exciting time. Otherwise, I'll see you guys on the next one.